Hey, what up everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today, sitting here on my lunch. It is fucking hot. I think it's triple digits here in Sacramento, California for today. You guys are lucky that WrestleMania wasn't SummerSlam, because it gets fucking wicked hot in California. And if you thought WrestleMania, sitting in that stadium, one of the biggest complaints for Levi's Stadium is the heat. Because there is no shade throughout the place. Be lucky that it wasn't SummerSlam. But, I think, just like everybody else, we were sitting back watching the Austin and Paul Heyman podcast. I liked the podcast. I think they tried to play it off. I liked how Austin didn't really try to hide the fact that him and Heyman hadn't, had probably 5 other shows. You remember back to SummerSlam weekend this year, Austin went out to the Heyman compound and they did an interview, and then for some reason, didn't like the interview, so he went back the next day and they did another interview that they aired that week, and then he ended up airing the podcast that he voided. He put it up as the Christmas episode. It was kind of weird to hear them with all their discussions about WrestleMania and SummerSlam in the middle of December, and he didn't really say that it was an old interview. He had to put it together by listening to the shows and hear him talk about how he just didn't like that much. But if you got to the end of the podcast, which I think everybody did, you got to see Austin get fired up. And this is one of the first times we've seen Austin get fired up in a long time. I think if you watch Tough Enough, which is replaying on the WWE Network right now, there was a few times, Austin got in the ring, Austin got in a few guys' faces and defended the business, and he stuck up for it, but we haven't really seen Stone Cold Steve Austin look like he's ready to get in a fight in a while. I think that was one of the real negatives about Steve Austin being, a part of the WrestleMania 27 build for the Cole versus Lawler match. He knew that he wasn't the main reason that match was happening. He just was a special guest referee. He was sort of an attraction. He wasn't what people were paying to see. And I know that Austin has been a guy rumored for a long time to be having one more match, but WrestleMania 19 was a long time ago. So before we even get into talking about this match, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Brock Lesnar, let this be known, big time warnings on this, I do not think this match is going to happen. I think that this has been offered to Stone Cold Steve Austin to come back and have one more match 1,000 times. And if you remember Austin on Jericho's podcast and Austin on his own podcast as well, talking about that he has too much to lose by going into the ring one more time. If he goes in there and he blows ass and it's just not a good match, that's what he's going to be remembered for his career, because there are a lot of fans out there that have never seen Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestle live. They've seen him wrestle on the network, they've seen him wrestle on DVD, on all other sort of forms of watching him on YouTube, but never really been able to experience what it was like to see Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestle live. And I know that there's my friends that have never seen him wrestle live. They've only seen him come out for appearances or come out at WrestleMania. They've never really got to experience a real Stone Cold Steve Austin match. That's why I'm really glad that I was able to live through that era, see him wrestle live at the Georgia Dome a few times, Phillips Arena, before that career was over at WrestleMania 19. Stone Cold Steve Austin always be remembered as one of the greatest in my mind. But when, just like Cena brought up a year beforehand, he said, I'd like to personally invite you to WrestleMania 31 or in 32. Both of these are locations that are close to you. If there's anything I can do to make sure that you have one hell of a time and be a part of the show. Paul Heyman did the same thing. He flipped the script on Austin at the end of the interview, basically saying, you want to come out, you want to fight Brock. This seems like one of the biggest matches that WWE could have. WWE's sort of building this dream team of matches that I think a lot of people are fantasy booking that are going to happen. Undertaker versus Sting, Triple H versus Rock, Brock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. He might as well try and find a way to bring back CM Punk for one more dream match. It seems like a lot of matches with guys that really aren't on the roster, and WrestleMania is the biggest stage of them all, but I just think that that's too many guys to be bringing back. And I stand up for the Kofi Kingstons, the Cesaros, the Tyson Kids, the guys that work SmackDown, the guys that work house shows, the unsung heroes that keep the shows going on, that are a big part of WWE year in and year out, but then it comes to WrestleMania and they're pushed to the background. But it was really fun to see Stone Cold Steve Austin get hyped up on Paul Heyman and get to see him pointing that finger and talking about, if I fight Brock Lesnar, it's going to be a fight to the death, it's going to be a Texas death match, and I ain't going there to lose. And it seems like he was almost having his negotiations with Vince McMahon through Paul Heyman on the podcast, knowing that Vince was watching, basically saying, that, you know, he ain't going to lose this match. He ain't coming back to lose, and it's going to be one hell of a thing for Brock Lesnar to come in and have this match. It is going to make a whole lot of money, but Brock beat Taker at WrestleMania 30. Brock beat Cena at Night of Champions and at SummerSlam. He beat him in the three-way. You know, Brock got screwed out of the championship by Seth Rollins coming in and cashing in, and maybe they'll have him, you know, come back and pay off for that at SummerSlam and become champion again, or maybe they want to keep Brock away from the belt. Honestly, in my opinion, Brock as being champion was a negative for WWE, because so long of not having the champion around sort of made the championship worth a little bit less. It definitely made the Money in the Bank briefcase worth less with Seth Rollins coming out there. It almost was the point where he wasn't even able to brag about being the Money in the Bank champion because of the fact that it's not a briefcase that gets defended in matches normally, so you don't have anybody to cash in on. He's carrying this around to house shows, and it's on Raw and it's on SmackDown, but if the champion's not there, it's not worth anything. It doesn't matter if you have a contract to cash in, because you can never take advantage of any situations if Brock's just sitting at home farming and doing things like this. If the match happens, it's going to make a ton of money. But Stone Cold Steve Austin hasn't wrestled for a reason since WrestleMania 19. We're coming up on WrestleMania 32. I don't think that a guy that's not wrestled in that long is going to be talked out of coming in and having a match against Brock Lesnar where he's going to get his ass kicked and had that money. Brock is probably going to want to throw Stone Cold Steve Austin around. One bad bump on that neck, and Austin could be going back through a life of pain for the rest of his life. It seems that he's injury free, and I'd hate to see him go back to that, because he had one more match against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 32. Find some way. The guest hosting, the special guest refereeing, that stuff's played out, especially on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania. Find something that he can do and not get himself killed.